There's two stereotypes that Hispanics really fall into. We're really hardworking and we're really about family. In our culture, family is so important, and it's our main driver for why we work and bust our ass. And when you get in between our family or our finances, we're going to vote your ass out. There's no loyalty to a party. I want you to help me. I want to work and be able to provide for my family. And I think that that's something that both parties don't really understand. We want a chance to work and get our family out. And I think most of the time, Democratic politicians got away from the family structure. We let the Republican Party literally run on God, family, and country. And those things in the Hispanic culture resonate. Mm-hmm. And as Democrats, we can't let Republicans own that, because I love God, I love my family, and I love my country just as much as any other Republican out there.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote Podcast. Mike Madrid's spring has sprung in Washington, D.C., and I am wearing my spring colors. How do I look?
You look fantastic. I was saying offline, you look like a picnic table at a Yogi Bear cartoon. And I mean that in a loving way. You don't like that. If everybody's watching on YouTube, that's not an insult. That's Chuck Rocha springing like the golden poppies in the hills of California after a big rain. How do you like that?
I went to a thing this morning. I told one of the kids at work for me that this shirt is older than them. Our guests will understand that this is an old brush popper from Cavender's from, I think, 1989 from East Texas. But speaking of our guest, and Mike, I'll let you do introductions since you're in love with this fucking guy so much, but we have super honored to have a special guest today because we tried to get a woman on this show, and Mike Madrid went and personally, him and Andres, invited Monica de la Cruz to be on this podcast this morning and gave them 2 weeks. And Mike, she didn't show, so we have a substitute guest today.
She didn't only not show, she didn't respond, which kind of hurt my feelers a little bit. Yeah, I was like, when you get turned down, at least kind of, make something up. And look, we've had a lot of great Republicans on the show. We're going to keep having a lot of Republicans on the show. But if you're afraid to show up, then we're going to have a response too. And that's why I wanted to have one of the campaigns that I am most excited about. Look, I like Bobby. We're going to show you why I like Bobby so much personally. But I love this campaign. I think that's what I really love about it. The way the flexibility, the response time, the agility, they're doing everything right down there. This is an R plus 11, 12 district down in the Rio Grande Valley. In Texas, some specials happening in Texas. Sometimes you look in your career and there's like the mood of the electorate, the timing, the candidates that are running. Everything seems to be clicking right now. And Chuck, you saw that with Tallarico. I know you just spent some time there in Texas with some of the candidates in the area. Something's happening. Something's happening on the ground. So with that, not much of an introduction. Let him speak for himself. But the Democratic nominee down in the Rio Grande Valley, right? 15th, Texas 15, Bobby Pulido. Bobby, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Hope you're doing well. Look, I like the shirt, Chuck, okay?
Thank you.
I like it.
Fucking
I like the shirt too, Chuck. I like the shirt too.
Bobby put on a collared shirt. You're wearing a fucking t-shirt. Shut up.
I think you're ready for an Easter egg hunt. Let's do it.
Bobby, I got the first question, and that is, as you think about what I've been watching you do online since you won the primary, I want to know what the mood of the district has been. There was $1 million spent against you in a primary. They tried to rough you up. They tried to come after everything about you. This is from the Democrats. I ain't even got to Monica's attacks on you yet. But what have you seen about the community coming together after the primary?
I think for us, it was really important early on to get down on the ground and meet people and talk to voters and meet people where they are. And the reason that's so important, it's twofold, right? You talk to voters, they trust you because they hear it from your mouth, but also it inoculates you from a lot of the negativity that they throw your way. When people know you and they hear people talking smack about you and they hear them coming up with all these rumors, it just emboldens them to support you even more. And I know that based on our polling with our favorables that were very, very high, the only thing they can do to try to beat us is to go negative on me. And that's all they can do. And so that's what they've been doing, but it hasn't been working. And I think the more people you go talk to out on the ground and people see you, see what you're about, I think it inoculates you to a degree, not all the way, but to a degree, it inoculates you from all that negativity that they're throwing your way.
Negativity, this is the toughest part for candidates to understand, and it's always a trick as a political consultant to tell your candidates this, that when they go negative on you, that's the best day of the campaign. That's like when you pop open the champagne as a challenger. You pop open that bottle of champagne because it means that they know that you are within striking distance and that the momentum is on your side. And you said it perfectly. At that point, all they have is they've got to go negative. They've got to try to tear you down because they can't lift their candidate up anymore. That's what the polling means. That's why negativity starts this early out. I mean, they're starting out early. And
no, they started since last year.
Yeah.
They actually started hitting me in October. Actually, Thanksgiving holiday was the first attack piece that they wrote.
Yeah.
And I'm on to them because they actually do it in the vacations times when people are at home on their phones. So there's a pattern that they follow.
They're really good at it. As one of those guys that used to do that for the Republican Party, I'm gonna say they're really good at it. We've developed it into a science here. But what I will also say is this. When you attack the king, you better kill him, because if your negatives don't start taking the candidate out earlier, every other shot after that is weaker. And people stop listening after a while. Especially in the Trump era, where just everything is pure negative. They start negative and continue negative. You're attacking somebody from a year and a half and it ain't working, you're in trouble because you run out of ammo, or you're firing the same bullets at the same target and it ain't hitting the same way. So feel good about that. Right. Yeah, but I do want to say this. I do feel like when Chuck told me that you were going to be on the show today, that you confirmed after I was denied by Monica de la Cruz, I felt like it was my quinceañera, because you have been making the rounds, Bobby, at quinceañeras throughout the district. I love this story. It is the perfect story of a campaign that is agile, that is aggressive, that is smart, and knows how to lean into what would be a crisis for most other campaigns. Let me set the table here, and if I get it wrong, then correct it. So Monica de la Cruz, the incumbent Republican in the district, and this is a Trump plus double digits district. This is not like, a 50-50 split. In a year like this, it looks really, really good, because all of the data, all of the outcomes of these elections you're seeing 11 to 20 point Latino swings. This is a very heavily Latino district. She's trying to attack you and dismiss you because of your celebrity status and as a very popular award-winning singer, very well-known Latino singer in the whole country, internationally, but certainly in your district, and dismisses you as somebody who just does quinceañeras. And your campaign immediately takes that and owns it and elevates it in a way that very few campaigns are able to do. And you start putting out the fact that you're proud of what our quinceañeras are, these rites of passages in our community when a young Latino Mexicana especially turns 15. And societies throughout the world have these. And for us, it's a quinceañera. It's a very, very important moment in a young woman's life, in a family's life. And to take the attack and turn it into such a strong positive, you announce that you're willing to show up at people's quinceañeras in the district, and you start getting responses. Over 1,000 people reach out to 2,000 now. It's just growing. It's just like, it's like the Streisand effect. You've brought this attention to it, where 2,000 people are now reaching out saying, please come to our quinceañera. And I can't imagine how good that's got to feel when you knew that response, that counterpunch worked and landed, but also how the De La Cruz campaign is reeling from that. Because how do they then counter in their response? So did I get the story right, Bob? Because we've all been watching it online unfold, and I'm just going, this is amazing. Like, this is remarkable. This does not happen in a congressional race. That kind of a counterpunch that just knocks them to her knees, and she's dazed. She's in trouble. That campaign's in trouble now, and they know it. But did I capture what exactly happened the right way?
You did. Actually, they had pre-recorded a attack piece on me with her talking. The moment that was declared the winner of the primary is when she released it.
Right.
Like, yeah. And so we were going to respond, but then the mariachi kids got detained with the family. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course.
And so we went with that because we saw that she had that mariachi in her office playing for her at the Capitol. And I know families, people affiliated with that mariachi that came to us and said, we asked her to help us, and she said she couldn't do anything. So I called her out on it on a Saturday. I called her out on it. On a Monday, she put a podium out there and was parading the kid out of the boy, Antonio, out of the detention center. If you had told me in 2024, when Trump won and they were running on mass deportations, that in early 2026, a Republican would be parading an immigrant out of a detention facility, I would have told you were crazy. But you know what? That just shows that the power is of people and how afraid they are to lose, And so we basically are making her react to everything that we do. I'm not reacting to her. She's reacting to us. When the South Texas Builders Association wanted to meet with her because they were getting raided and they didn't have a workforce, she didn't do anything about it. She ignored their calls, much like they ignored yours when you invited her to this podcast.
Right.
When I went to go meet with them and I started talking about their issues, she came up with a Bracero 2.0. I want to do something. And then with this situation with the mariachi, with Mariachi Oro and the Gámez Cuellar family, same thing, right? She just reacting to everything that we're doing. And that just shows that she's not a leader. She's a follower. I think South Texas needs leaders, not followers.
Well, let me ask, there's a pattern going on here, and I want to address the pattern. I've been doing campaigns a long time. And one thing that I've learned about all campaigns is that a lot of times when you get to Congressional and Senate, when it's time to respond, you get all your advisors together and the managers and party committees and all the other things. I'm not going to badmouth anybody here, but I will say this, is that sometimes we get so caught up in how to respond the right way and to use the right words, and it just makes it be delayed. And so you end up waiting and it's not in real time. 3 things you mentioned that stuck with me. One is the quinceañera, the response, boom, you start owning it right away. But you didn't wait a week. You didn't wait 15 days. It was pretty quickly. Then you had these mariachi kids. And these mariachi kids that have been playing all over South Texas, for those of you who didn't follow this, they got detained. They're in a detention center. Bobby's on a Saturday. And he's going to camera on his phone, talking about something needs to be done immediately. Again, within hours or days, not weeks, not months. And then this week you responded with another response ad about all these attacks on you, again, to camera, talking about people know what's real and what's not real, about a video that you had done 15, 20 years ago. They're just looking, like Mike said, in desperation. But again, immediately response. The thing that I think sticks out to me as the old goat is the immediacy of the quickness of the rapid response in the social media era, where campaigns that I work on, let's just call them regular campaigns, top-tiered campaigns. They would have to be a poll. They'd have to be a focus group. We'd have to make sure that the response was right. And then it would wait 2 weeks before anything ever effing happened. Tell me the thought process with you and Abel and the team when this goes down, or is this just you immediately reacting, making a phone call and saying, we're going to camera to talk about this right now? How does that happen?
It's me and Abel, primarily. But basically, we'll talk about it and say, I think we need to respond.
Who's Abel, Bobby? Tell listeners who Abel is.
Abel Prado is my campaign manager.
You don't have a big call with 15 consultants and a focus group, none of that.
We did not do that. Listen, when the mariachi kids got, when the family of the Gámez Cuellar, their whole family got detained, I was on a plane to New York. And when I landed, I saw this and then I immediately said, I saw that she had them over. We asked her to help us and she said she couldn't help us. I did the video in an Uber. That video got 1.5 million views. Right now, I did not go ask people, what do you think if I do a video? If that would have happened, we would have been hemming and hawing for a week. But I got there on a Saturday and I said, this is how I feel. And and when you have too many opinions, sometimes there's going to be all kinds of them, but instincts are instincts. And I think that they're important.
You were going to say consultants before you said opinions. I appreciate that. You can't have too many consultants. And we're consultants. We know we're saying it for you.
Whoa.
Yeah, there are times, Chuck, and you've been there when you can over consult a moment to death, and it takes a candidate with good instincts. You can't get to your level of success with people without having a feel for where the community's at. And that was kind of the question I wanted to ask you, especially with what we call the mood of the electorate in the business, like how people are feeling. New York Times last week just did this big kind of video on South Texans and Texans along the border communities, Latinos, Hispanics, of course, talking about that had voted for Trump and are now regretting that vote because the economy is coming under fire. The economy is, in trouble. These tariffs are killing it. The immigration policies, decimating the workforce. That creates an inflationary cycle where things are getting more and more expensive, and it's clearly getting out of control. We listened, Bobby, to the same news outlet telling us, that it was all about the Border Patrol and immigration in 2024 and heading into 2025 in the midterms. What is it? Is it the economy? Is it immigration? Is it both? Is it this overall feeling of just despair and chaos and crazy? What has changed in the past 18 months? What has moved voters down there?
It's both, because down here in the Rio Grande Valley, the immigration issue is economic. They go hand in hand. They're not separate, right? Because the Rio Grande Valley used to be called El Mágico Valle del Rio Grande. They promoted it. It was an agricultural town, right? So my grandfather was a migrant farm worker, not an immigrant, a migrant farm worker that would go to California, go to Florida, and go and with the growing seasons and would go pick crops.
Go with the crops, yeah.
And the thing that's really inherent in our DNA as Hispanics and Mexicanos and Latinos down here is we always want our kids to do better than us. There's two stereotypes that Hispanics really fall into. We're really hardworking and we're really about family, right? In our culture, family is so important, and it's our main driver for why we work and bust our ass. And when you get in between our family or our finances, we're going to vote your ass out. There's no loyalty to a party. I want you to help me. I want to work and be able to provide for my family. And I think that that's something that both parties don't really understand. We're very proud. We also don't like to be treated as if we're poor. Like I said, you can call us broke, but we want a chance to work and get our family out. And I think most of the time, Democratic politicians got away from the family structure. We let the Republican Party literally run on God, family, and country. And those things in the Hispanic culture resonate. Mm-hmm. And as Democrats, we can't let Republicans own that, because I love God, I love my family, and I love my country just as much as any other Republican out there.
I love that. I know, Chuck, real quick, I'm jumping in here. You know how excited I get with certain guests. Do you feel like you can lead the party in that direction? Are they getting it? Are they listening? I know Ruben Gallego does this too. And as I keep saying, the future of the Democratic Party is in the Southwest. It's with working class Latinos. It's not going to be in the Rust Belt. Guys, sorry. The white working class voter's gone. The future of the Democratic Party, if it's going to have what is a national party, it's going to get back into the game in the House, the Senate, or the White House. It's going to have to be through the Sun Belt. And when you say that, you're talking about Latinos. That is the working class that is gettable, that has been lost over the past, not just year, but the past, for the last 5 elections. Everything you're saying is intuitive to us as Latinos, but it does run a little bit counter to the heterodoxy of the Democratic Party right now. I mean, are you feeling that there's a reconnect, a more willingness to listen to you on those issues now?
I think so. I think so, Mike, because I'm going to tell you, if we got to go to the heterodoxy of all the parties historically, they're always changing anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Look, the party under Bush was not the same Republican Party.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
So my point is, nothing stays fixated. Right. At the end of the day, we win people over with ideas and understanding the people. And I think that they are. And I think that we have lacked the leadership on the issue. As a party, we haven't had much leadership to define who we are. So then down here, we're not just geographically in the middle, we're metaphorically in the middle too, right?
Yeah.
We're in South Texas, right in the middle of the country. And if we don't define who we are, then we get very, very open to the East Coast and the West Coast wanting to define us.
Right.
And we can't have that anymore.
For all the folks that are listening, I want to apologize for 3 words ahead of time now. I'm not really sure what the inoculates, the heterodoxy, or the metaphorically means, but y'all are getting some big-ass words in here is all I'm saying. Y'all get a little too fancy.
Talking like working class people suddenly, huh?
Ooh, inoculate. I got inoculated one time, but then I had to come back across the border in the U.S., but I digress. So, Bobby, on Monday night, I was in San Antonio with a great organization called Vote Vets, who was one of my first clients back in the day when I started the firm. They were there with Ruben Gallego, and I got to go down with Ruben. And it was a town hall full of U.S. veterans from back to, Vietnam, all the way through the current wars and everything in between. And what shook me was I don't think I'd ever seen so many Latino veterans in one room. And there were probably, Mike, 300 standing room only. They built a big square in the middle where you could walk around like they did for Pete Buttigieg, but they did it for Ruben. All Latinos, half in Spanish, half in English. One guy got up and talked about he used to be a Republican, why he wasn't a Republican no more. Many independents got up and spoke. A woman who'd lost her brother who's a Ghost Star family member. But what stuck with me, Bobby, is the way Latinos, Hispanics in America have had such a rich history of fighting in our armed services, and how these guys and women were talking about what this current war means to them. And unanimously, if I use that word right, how much they didn't want to see this anymore. And they didn't want to see our troops on the ground. They didn't want to see any more lives lost, because all of these people in the room, and that's what really got me emotional, was they had lived through it. They've been shot at. They've shot people. They had lost family members. And it was really moving. And Ruben got choked up and when talking to a lot of them, because he remembers the pain of that. War is real, and we're at war right now. How do you balance in South Texas this great patriotism of Hispanic soldiers who have fought for all of our freedoms, and now having to talk about the way your position is on this Iran war and what's it doing to our economy? What are you talking about on the ground when it comes to that?
Well, I think you're right. What you saw in San Antonio is something that's probably even more so down here in the Rio Grande Valley. We have a ton of veterans here, right? And that's the thing. Our Latino community, our Hispanic community, I'm not trying to say we're the most patriotic, but there's not many people more patriotic than us. We die for our country. But I'm going to tell you something, we don't want to die. Since we are about family, we don't want to go die needlessly for a war that's not been given there's no good reason why we're over there. To this day, I have yet to hear a good excuse why we're over there. There hasn't been a case that's been made. I mean, after 9/11, you could make the argument like, okay, we got hit, the World Trade Center towers went down. Okay, I can see that. We have not been presented with that. So I don't think this thing is going to be really popular. And especially down here, it's not popular, because every time you go fill up your gas tank and it's really expensive, you say, well, hold on, why the hell am I paying a lot more for gas? Well, because of the war. Well, what's the reason why we're over there? Well, I don't really know. This is something that it just seems like this administration doesn't even give a shit anymore. They don't care. They just say, like, we're going to war because we want to and because we can. And I don't think that's a winning formula. And the people are smarter than that. The people are smarter than that.
Are people talking about it on the ground, Bobby? Are people talking about it in the district, the war?
Sure, of course they are. But you know what? Again, we always look at things through the lenses of finances. Yeah. When they start saying, hey, man, the dollar's not going as far as it used to, and I got to cut back on certain things. That's the biggest reminder of okay, this is BS. I don't want to, I'm not with that. So yeah, it's definitely. I was meeting with the builders the other day, and even when they go bring materials and dirt and stuff like that, there's a surcharge now of fuel, and that eats up into their bottom line, right? Which is their profit, and they take that money home to feed their families. And so it really does come down to the economy. All of these things that just hurt the economy, listen, I've always said this, Schadenfreude is not a strategy. And I know I'm sorry.
I'm writing
Chuck,
that down.
I'm sorry for using big words, Chuck, but look, I know that they're going to come undone, right? But what I want to do is, as a Democrat, is to stop that and to actually give people a reason to stay. This has been like such a big swing, right? There's huge swings back and forth.
Yeah.
And how can we keep the people, right? That's what I want to do. How can we keep them? And we can't just constantly depend on the other side screwing it up.
That should be like carved in the marble over the Democratic National Committee's headquarters. Like, we can't just rely on Republicans to overreach and screw things up. They will, by the way. I've been working with that party for a long time. They will overreach 100 times out of 100. They will, but that's not building a party. Waiting for them to overreach is not building an agenda that's sustainable or that's permanent. The opening for for Latinos in this part of the country, your part of the country, the Southwest specifically, is this huge opening for candidates like yourself. And like I said, obviously there's Ruben. We have the sitting member from New Mexico too. Help me with his name, Chuck.
Gabe Vasquez.
Gabe Vasquez. I mean, my God, what a great candidate this guy is. Great candidate, like real, authentic, salt of the earth. Mexicano. And that's the future of both parties, by the way. Whichever party is able to capture that, and the fact that we are the only group that is still moving back and forth between the parties, everybody kind of, punishes us, castigates us. How's that, Chuck? Write that one down too. Everyone wants to blame us because we voted for this Trump guy, we voted Republican, and now we're swinging back. That's the way it's supposed to work in a democracy. If the party that is in power is not serving your needs, leaving that party is a good thing. And the fact that we are the swing vote, I think, is going to center up and force both parties out of their partisan foxholes, out of these red and blue lenses, and start saying, maybe we start listening now. Maybe we stop just kind of taking this for granted, and maybe we actually listen. And so to hear Gabe Vasquez's voice, Bobby Pulido's voice, Ruben Gallego's voice, like, do y'all get it now? To those of you that are listening, that may or may not be Latino, that are focused on the Latino vote, that's the future. That's how you win a majority. That's what's emerging. All of those voices, 3 different states, same ethnicity, same culture, same battleground voter, telling you exactly where the community's at, the evidence showing it over and over and over. I don't know how to paint the picture more clearly to both Republicans and Democrats. That was the Mike Madrid wind-up to ask this question, Bobby. Last night, in Florida, an election was held where Mar-a-Lago sits. Democrat wins that seat. 20-point shift again. A lot of Latinos too. It's Palm Beach, which is very exclusive area. Not a whole lot of Latinos, but the Latinos that are there are Cuban, a little bit wealthier than us Mexicanos are. But Cubans are shifting. So when Cubans are voting like Dominicanos and voting like Venezolanos and voting like Colombianos and Mexicanos and Puerto Ricanos, I have never, as somebody who's watched this vote very closely, never seen all of our diasporas, all of our subcultures moving in the same direction. And that is away from the Republican Party in numbers I've never seen. You look at Texas, that special election a couple of weeks ago, 22-point swing. 22-point swing of the Latino vote. I've never seen that before. During the Crockett-Tallarico race, you saw 50-point swings. Like, this math is something that we don't normally see in elections. And so I'm fascinated by your race, as you know. We talk about your race a lot here on the show. I want to know, what is it going to take, and do you talk to the Gabe Vasquez's and the Ruben Gallegos to start building this common agenda that says exactly what you guys say? The Democratic Party is my party, but you're getting it wrong here, here, and here. How does that formalize? How do you guys bring that together and start moving the party into the direction of our community?
I like Gabe a lot. We don't talk as much as I talk with Ruben. I talk more with Ruben. But listen, Ruben's like a big brother to me, and I respect him immensely. And he gets it. He understands it. And I met him even before I jumped in. Like 6-7 months before I even jumped in, I met Ruben. And we were already seeing this, that they just don't get it. As Democrats, we tended to play identity politics in the wrong way, neglecting the true identity of who we are. Listen, the quinceañera thing is identity politics, right? When my opponent is very disconnected with quinceañeras and throws it as an insult, right? I don't look at that as an insult. I look at that and embrace it because I get my people. And that is identity politics. Not all identity politics is bad as long as you stay true to who you are and you understand who you're talking to, right? And so I'll tell you, the party, I think, I'm a political neophyte, right? Because I've never run before. This is my first time. I'm sorry. There you go, Chuck. Write that one down so you can ChatGPT it.
Schadenfreude. I'd be Schadenfreude.
but look, I'm new at this, but I do know that what I experienced in the primary, right, was social media is not the real world. And I think we have to really get past that as a party, because they make a lot of noise and they're very vicious, but that's not the electorate. When I go talk to people down on the ground, we did 240 meetings and gatherings, 240 before our primary. the way people were talking to me was not how they talk to you on social media. And I can see where the social media pressure would incline you to maybe go after a smaller part of the electorate that doesn't move the needle as much for the votes that you need to win. And I think we need to kind of stay our course. Hispanics are very culturally conservative. And I tell people, do not confuse that with with republicanism. Do not confuse that. We can own conservatism in our own way and still be a Democrat. Down here, there's tons of events of fundraisers. Let me tell you, barbecue plates. Everybody here is always trying to help each other out, man. That's our spirit. That's who we are, and that's a democratic way, right? It's about people, about working class people. So we need to kind of fuse that and not let them own that one part, because that's what happens is they own that, and then people say, "Well, I guess I'm a Republican then," and they know they're not. They know they're not, but we need to bring them back.
You're going to put Chuck and I out of business, man. If everyone starts listening to you, I mean, it's better advice than we've got.
No. Look, I don't want to step on nobody's schadenfreude or make sure that they don't get their neophyte out. But what I want to talk about is what we're looking at as now we're heading into the summer. We'll get us focused back on this race. And I think something as a guy who's worked in Texas for 36 years, going back to Ann Richards, and I got gray hairs on my face to prove it. Is there something very unique happening, not just the voter turnout, but it's this consolidation of anger where we saw 30% of folks who had never had a Democratic primary history voting in the primaries. You saw a lot of money spent by James Tallarico and our team. You saw, Gina Hinojosa out there making history as a Latina running for governor. What I want to know from you, Bobby, is how do you see this puzzle coming together for November? You've got James at the top of the ticket. I know you're friends with James. I know you're friends with Gina, who you should know, Madrid. Gina Hinojosa lives in Austin, but is from Brownsville, Texas. She is a daughter of the Valley. She is very much culturally competent in that way.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have this, when you go to the voting booth, you're going to have Tallarico, Gina, a few of the other statewide elections. Then you're going to have a congressional race in 15. How do you think, if you were giving strategy to all the candidates of like, how does this come together through the summer of, I'm not going to call it a coordinated campaign, but that's what it is, where everybody's helping everybody, like you just said, to make sure that we are victorious in November. How have you been thinking about that?
I mean, look, everybody's running their own race, right? So everybody's got a different strategy. If there's one thing that I can tell you that I'm really proud of in this past primary race, is our undervote numbers were insane. So the undervote numbers shows you how many people actually skipped your race. Because you can go, it was long. When you vote here in Texas, the list is long. So the lieutenant governor's race here in Texas in District 15, in my district, was at about like 14.5% of the people skipped the lieutenant governor's race.
Okay, that's a big drop off. Yeah.
Okay. The governor's race had a little over 10% of undervote, which means 10% of the people did not vote in the governor's race.
And this is in the Democratic primary races, right?
That's right. In District 15, right? James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett had about 6.7% undervote. We had under 2% undervote.
Wow. Is that unique to Texas? I mean, I keep hearing about this, and just so everybody understands what he's saying is people were coming in and voting in his race and not even voting at the governor's and Senate race. That is so anomalous. Like everywhere else in the country, you see people come and vote at the top of the ticket. They know there's a governor and Senate race, the high profile races, TV ads running, millions of dollars being spent, coverage wall to wall, and then they drop off as this long ballot. The lower you go on the ballot, normally you see fewer and fewer votes.
But if I may be honest, in our ballot, it was James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. We were next, and then it was the governors, and then lieutenant governors, and then everybody else.
Interesting. Okay.
Federal races first.
Federal races first.
Correct. Federal races first. So all I can tell you is those numbers were very encouraging to us. That showed that we had the enthusiasm really high for voting for us. The only thing I can tell you is that my strategy was a very grassroots strategy. We did have commercials. The Blue Dogs came in and also helped. I'm a Blue Dog Democrat, and they came in, but we ran our race a little differently than most people. So everybody's different. James ran a different type of race. Of course, it's a different animal because it's statewide.
Let me ask you something, Bobby. Let me interrupt because I want you to give me, before Mike jumps in, because I think there's another data point we're missing that I want you to explain that I was very impressed with that Mike needs to know about that's very unique to the Valley that happened on primary night in the 15th. And I think across the Valley, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Am I right to say that you were one of the few male Democrats to actually win and not have to go to a runoff? Wasn't most of the victories in the Valley Latinas?
This was a very interesting thing here. All of our down ballot races in my district, the woman won handily. 58% of the vote that was here was women dominated, 58%. And there were races that were expected to be a lot closer. I was a little concerned because I was running against a woman that had the story. She was a single mom, a doctor and a lawyer. And so, but 70% of my fan base is women. And I think that doesn't hurt. I don't think that hurt me. But yes, we need to bring back the men in the general, right? And that's what I'm looking for. When I would go to the UTRGV to go talk to the college Dems, we were drawing more men than women. And I think that's really good. It's a good sign for us on moving forward. And I think that's our weak spot as Democrats. We need to do better with men, especially young Latino men. Because here's the thing about our culture, right? As young Latino men, and I don't know about individual situations, but for the most part, we're raised with dad there. Young Latino men look up to their dad and they see their dad and they see that old school of the provider, the guy that said, hey, I'm the protector. I'm going to work for the family. And they want to be that. And if you go away from that structure, they don't feel like you relate to them. And I think that's something that I've embraced, you know. And again, my wife, when I met her, you know, was a career woman, and she decided, not we, that she wanted to be a mom and dedicate herself to that way of life. And I respected her if she would have not wanted that. But nonetheless, I think that that's something that the young man, I got 4 boys. I don't have any girls. I don't have any daughters. Or I got 4 sons. And I think the young man looks up to their dad that way. And I think that we have to embrace that and at least understand it, right? And I'm not saying promote it, because I want the women's movement to advance and I want women to do well. But we're so unbalanced politically right now that it just feels like the Republican Party is very male dominated and the Democratic Party is very female dominated. So this is gonna create an interesting race in that I'm a Democrat man, right, running against a Republican woman.
Fascinating.
And that's going to be an interesting dynamic that I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out.
And I do want to say, just for the record, because I know everybody's listening to the show, that Congresswoman Monica de la Cruz was invited. I want to extend again the invitation. I would love to have her on the show. It's a safe space. Nobody's going to be attacking. It's just a conversation. But so I'm extending again, saying, Congresswoman, please come on the show. Please respond to us. Would love to have you. We want to hear your voice about not just the race, which we can talk about, but talk about the district and the community. Because look, I'm here. I'm the Republican on the show, and I've been advocating for this for 35 years. I think it's great, by the way. I get attacked for this all the time. I think it's great that our people are voting 50-50. I want us voting 50-50 because I want the parties responding to us and to our community. And so much of what you're saying defies this stereotype of the online chatter, right, Bobby? Which is, we all know what you just said to be true. It doesn't make you a bad person, right? These are the considerations that families go through every day, not just in the Rio Grande Valley, but throughout the country. And to be able to have that conversation openly and honestly, I think is critically important. And I'm glad you're bringing that voice to bear here. Where can people find out more information about your campaign?
Website for donations.
You can go Bobby Pulido for Texas. Yep.
Bobby Pulido for Texas.com. Is there anything else? What are we missing here?
I've been thinking about this for years now, right? Because I was a poli-sci major and I've been studying the trends and studying, you know, the way you've written about the books and stuff like that, about the Latino vote and how it's trending. I'm a Democrat. I've always been a Democrat, but I think a lot of people don't really believe, they think it's an oxymoron to say I'm a conservative Democrat, but it is. But that doesn't mean that I'm a Republican, right? I mean, I believe in helping each other out. I do believe that the system right now is broken. The whole system is really, really broken, and it's really corrupt. one of the biggest issues that people did not like in our poll that they were against down here in the Rio Grande Valley was corruption. People do not want corruption. Right now, what you're seeing Trump with this war, it's stock market manipulation. Yeah. Right. And I tell people that are conservative, because I got conservative friends down here, and I say, you know what? You're not Republican. You're just conservative. But understand that what you're seeing right now is not conservatism. You heard Donald Trump Jr. say this, Mike, that he said it's not the Republican Party, it's the MAGA Party.
Right.
So I tell people, if you're a Republican, that should insult you, because if Barack Obama had ever said it's no longer the Democratic Party, it's the Hope Party, I think Democrats would be really insulted by that, because you know what? No man and no movement is bigger than the party itself. I don't believe that. I think but I think that what's even more important than the party are the individual ideals that we have as candidates. Because now people are disillusioned with both parties. That's a fact. They want somebody that speaks the truth and tells them the truth and goes and works hard for them. That's it. It's not rocket science.
If it was rocket science, I wouldn't be doing it. Mike damn sure wouldn't be if it was a beauty contest. But look, we want to extend to you and be the first one we extend a invitation to come to the Latino Vote Summit. Last week on the podcast, we wrote out our date, which is going to be on June the 23rd. It's going to be in Washington, D.C. So you and I will be thinking about if you could wrap some other meetings around it, come up, meet with some labor folks and other folks in the leadership who I know you've been talking to. We could have a separate fundraiser. We could figure that out, but circle that date on your calendar. It's June the 23rd. The House and the Senate will both be in. I'll let you know that Ruben Gallego is doing a Latino town hall at lunch. It's going to be the special thing that happens around lunchtime with Ruben. He's going to do a Latino town hall. There's going to be a lot of your friends in that room. It's going to be an invite only, half Mike's friends, half mine. But Mike's list is much smaller because he just don't have that many friends. But other folks are coming as well.
Yeah. And we'll be inviting Monica too. I do. Like I said, this is not I'm going to be inviting Republicans, proudly. I want to hear it. We want to have the discussion. And like I said, I want us to get past this partisan nonsense and see the only way to save this country is if Latinos can force both of their parties to have these difficult discussions. And so Bobby, I appreciate you. I appreciate your voice. I think you're a champion for our community. I think you're a fighter for our community. I think you put our community ahead of the party. And I think that that's important. And I think if more of us did that, and if we held each other to account, Republican and Democrat, our community would be much, much better off.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a fan of your podcast since you guys started. And I appreciate the support that you guys bring to the community, because look, you're the perfect example that you can be in both parties and agree on most of the things that we need as a constituency. And I've always told people this: anybody that can unite the Latino vote will unite the country. And I honestly believe that. I think we hold the key, and I think we are the future. And you guys have been on the forefront, and I think that any party that neglects us at their peril.
Give us the website one more time, Bobby, for all of our listeners who want to go give you $25.
Bobby Pulido for Texas.
For those of you listening, go there, share that on social media, call your uncle who may be a little concerned and say, I got a Democrat for you. Call your old friend who may listen to the Bobby Pulido music and sing at Quinceañeras. Send it to them as well. If you're lucky enough to have your mom and dad, don't forget to call them this week. Tell them you love them. And also a little hat tip while we're in the middle of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Special shout out to the University of Houston and the University of Texas. Hope they can make it all the way to the end in the Sweet 16. And for the rest of you, we'll see you next week. We're gone.
Yes, but you know what? I've known Rocha hats. That's not your company.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I know them.
Right. It's in Mexico. It's in Guanajuato.
I used to have a clothing line.
Is that right?
I think you told me that.
I used to have a clothing line, and I used to deal with Rocha out of San Pancho, San Francisco del Rincón, Guanajuato is where they're at.
Interesting. I want to go to there so bad, Bobby, and make them my cousins in the worst way. It's on my wish list after the election's over.
Let me try to make it work. Try to make it work.
Show us those initials again on your hat, just so we can know how legit you are. And Chuck, next show, I want to see your initials burnished in your hat like that, Chuck. Can you do that?
Yeah. Bobby's rich. I'm barely making it.
Oh, come on now. You're a consultant. I pay people like you.
Oh, this is true. This is true.